Dante wrote, "The path to paradise begins in hell." Join Deacon Don Prendergast and David Fortin as they discuss the tools men need to build the domestic church and the spiritual weapons to defend it. This is Through the Fire.
Okay, Deacon, we're back. Hey, and this is really a great conversation we're having. We're talking about Blessed are the Merciful. And I think in this part of the show, I think we're going to talk more about how we can be merciful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the last segment, we were talking about some historical elements. We were talking about the role of the Blessed Mother. We were talking about the mercy that is owed to God, that there is no way that we're going to be able to truly fulfill. So now comes the question of how do we live our life so that we give Jesus, we give our Lord what is owed to him? And the answer is always going to be, there is never enough we can do. It's always going to be that, and it has to be that. It has to be that because the point really needs to be driven home. Nobody's buying their way into heaven. It's just impossible. You can't buy your way into heaven. What we're looking at here is more along the lines of, if you are living a lifestyle of sin, we have to equate sin. And remember what sin is. Sin is missing the mark, right? It's a very ancient archery term. It means you're missing the mark. And what is the mark? The mark is the life that Christ explains to us that we are called to live. So we're talking about the Beatitudes. We're talking about the 10 Commandments. We're talking about the new commandment. Love one another as I have loved you. Therefore, by loving one another, all will know that you are my disciples. And how does Jesus love us? He gave his life for us. So from a spiritual perspective, from the perspective of our longing to be close to God, we are not supposed to be selfish. We are supposed to see others. As Mother Teresa of Calcutta, Saint Teresa, as she teaches, when you look into the eyes of the poor, you are to see Christ. When you look into the eyes of the sick and the infirmed, when you look into the eyes of your enemy, you are to see Christ. And so we look to others, and we have to understand that we are called to also be merciful, because mercy is the true measure of devotion. If we are going to be devoted to Jesus, then we are meant to extend mercy to others. And it's not an easy thing to do. I know it's not easy, because there are some people that they've really done a number on you. You don't want to be merciful. You want them to suffer. It's understandable. We want to be like Jonah, right? The story of Jonah, where Jonah finally gets to Nineveh. Finally, he gets to Nineveh, and he walks through the streets of Nineveh preaching repentance, and then goes and sits under a fig tree, and he's sitting there and just waiting for the lightning to strike and wipe everybody out. Because the Ninevites were people that were enemies. So, it's understandable that these emotions rise up inside of you, but you got to do the right thing with them. You can't walk around thinking, oh, I'm going to stick it to this one. Oh, that one, he really screwed me over. Wait till he gets his. That's exactly what the pagans do. That's exactly what the world expects you to do. Eye for an eye, right? No, that's not what we can't do that. We have to understand that we too are guilty of not giving God what is justly his. We're guilty of that also. And so what happens? We ask for mercy because there's no way that we're going to be able to pay back the debt that we owe. So we ask for God's mercy. And mercy is, for some, perhaps a confusing aspect. And so we have the absolute benefit of St. Faustina. So St. Faustina was a Polish nun, okay? St. Maria Faustina Kowalska. She was a Polish nun who had a number of visions with Christ. And so many visions she had with Jesus, and she would go to her priest and she would talk about this. And it got to the point where he's like, just write everything down and then give me the notebook and I'll read it when I have time. And out of all of those writings, we have what's known today as the Divine Mercy in My Soul, the Diary of Saint Faustina. And what I want to do is I want to start off by reading a little bit from here. And this is one of the things that she documented as part of the encounter that she had with Jesus, who was talking about his mercy and the desire for his mercy to extend to the whole world. He said to her, "My daughter, if I demand through you that people revere my mercy, you should be the first to distinguish yourself by this confidence in my mercy. I demand from you deeds of mercy, which are to arise out of love for me. You are to show mercy to your neighbors always and everywhere. You must not shrink from this or try to excuse or absolve yourself from it. I am giving you 3 ways of exercising mercy towards your neighbor. The first, by deed. The second, by word. The third, by prayer." So Jesus had shared this with St. Faustina, that even we are supposed to show mercy to each other. Now, who are we showing mercy to other than the people that may have wronged us? And so that really twists you in the wind, I know. But if we're going to have a life of grace, if we're going to be truly in friendship with Jesus and live out this beatitude, we have to understand what it means to be merciful to others. We have to really exercise it. And so we have to understand that we need to exercise mercy by deed, which means we need to do things. You know, it's great to go to church and pray in the chapel all day, all night, every day. But Jesus is asking us to be out in the world. He's asking us to be in the communities, to be when we're at work and we have some knucklehead that we're working with that really, really grits against us. Buy the person lunch every once in a while. Be merciful. Bring in some kind of a treat or something that you can share of yourself. Not because you're looking for some praise, but because Jesus is asking you to do it. Change the hearts and minds of others. So show mercy by deed. Second, by word. Do you have to say negative things towards others? Here's one. Do you say negative things about yourself? This is one of the things that I find myself routinely reminding others. I worked with this one individual. I'm not going to mention the name or the place because it wasn't too far back in the past. But I worked in a place where I would routinely hear a fellow worker make a mistake and they would correct themselves. Maybe they were giving direction to somebody. And they would correct themselves first by saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I lied." It's like, what are you talking about? You didn't lie. You made an honest mistake. "Oh, I lied." You didn't lie. But by saying you lied, you're speaking out loud, "I've committed a mortal sin." Now, some people may think, what are you making a big deal out of this for, Deacon? It's not a big deal. It is a big deal. If we're going to believe one aspect of Catholicism, we have to believe all aspects of Catholicism. And to lie is a mortal sin. It's a violation of one of the commandments. And so we have to, even if we didn't do it or didn't mean it or it came out wrong, we have to stop using words. Let's not forget, all of creation came into existence through what? The spoken word. What we say matters. What we say has power. What we say as baptized faithful has authority. And so our words are very, very important. So if we're going to be merciful towards others, we have to exercise that mercy also by word. I forgive you. I forgive you. And third, by prayer. I remember a long time ago, I heard a priest say something once, and I was like, you know what? You're absolutely right. And this was a long time ago. It was not long after 9/11. I was a New York City police officer at the time during 9/11. Remember it very, very well. A lot of emotions. People saying, we need to turn the Middle East into a glass parking lot. Wow. A lot of emotions. And in the middle of all of that, I remember hearing a priest say, notice nobody is praying a mass for Osama bin Laden. And it was very controversial to live in New York City, to work in New York City, and to hear a priest say that in New York City. But he's right. we're supposed to love our enemies.
They were trying to shut up Richard Gere because he was actually, and he's a Buddhist, I believe.
Yeah.
He's a Buddhist, and he was trying to say, "Hey, let calmer heads prevail," and they were shouting him down. So yeah. You're right, Deacon.
But I remember this. I have to admit, I got swept up into the emotions also. I remember the Muslim community wanted to build a mosque at Ground Zero. Oh, and I got swept up into those emotions.
Wow.
But I mean, Jesus calls us to love our enemies. And so there are practical ways that we could extend mercy. And this is the beatitude. Let's not forget the beatitude that we're talking about is blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. And that means if you are not merciful towards others, what's going to happen when it's your turn?
Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those
who trespass against us. Absolutely. Yeah. That's another one. The measure by which you forgive others, that is the measure that will be extended upon you.
I often wonder if, when we say, "Oh, I'll pray for you," and you sort of just say it to say it.
Yeah.
And you don't really, I kind of wonder if God's not going to hear your prayers, if you don't.
Yeah. That's you make a really good point. It's like, you think he's not paying attention to that?
Yeah.
I mean, and nothing against my fellow clergymen, but that's very, very common.
That's why I try to, when I say I'll pray for you, that's why I always try to give it to the Blessed Mother and say, "Don't let me forget this," or I'll offer a Hail Mary right then and there, or an Our Father.
Right. Or one of the things that I do is I will incorporate into my prayers, I'll reflect upon, because I mean, there's a lot of times there are multiple people and it's hard to keep track of everything. But what I'll do is I'll reflect upon all of those instances where I was approached.
Yeah.
Even if I can't remember the person's name or the name of who they asked me to pray for, I'll still say, and please extend all of my prayerful intentions to all those who asked me to pray for them.
And I'm sure, as being clergy, that you get approached quite often, more so than I do.
Right. Yeah. So the other side of living this life. So this is also what I had wanted to mention. And again, this also comes from Saint Faustina. She wrote in her diary also, she wrote this, and these are her words. "After each conversation with the Lord, my soul is extraordinarily strengthened, and a profound tranquility prevails therein, and gives me such courage that I do not fear anything in the world, but fear only lest I make Jesus sad." This is very, very important for us to focus on. I've told others, and I really do believe this, who else do we need to worry about when we find ourselves being judged for eternity? Who else do we need to worry about other than Jesus? Whose opinion matters? What other opinion could possibly matter other than Jesus? We really have to think about this. We have to think about who is it that we spend day after day after day trying to impress? Who are we trying to be so strong and so powerful in front of? None of these people are going to stand and judge us. Only Jesus. And we can't buy our way into heaven. We have to express our desire for him and him alone by how we live. Are we following his playbook or the world's playbook? And his playbook tells us very, very clearly. It says to us, you know how much of a screw-up you are. I know how much of a screw-up you are. But I will wipe all of that away as I watch you wipe away the offenses of others. We have the judgment of nations. Another scripture passage where Jesus says, and the king will separate the sheep, the goats on the left and the sheep on the right. And to those on the right, he will say, come inherit the kingdom of heaven, prepared from the foundation of the world, for I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. Sick and in prison you visited me. Naked and you clothed me. And to those on his left, be cursed into the eternal flames. For when I was hungry, you gave me no food. Thirsty, you gave me no drink. Naked, you gave me no clothing. Sick and in prison, you did not visit me. And they will say, well, when, Lord, did we see you like this? And he will say, what you do for the least, you did for me. And so how many times do we have to ignore those around us who clearly qualify as the least? And the least has nothing to do with financial ability or the car you drive. Mother Teresa was abundantly clear with that. The greatest of poverties, she would say, the greatest of poverty is the unloved, the ignored, the forgotten. And I've known plenty of people who have all kinds of wealth, all kinds of physical attributes, property, vehicles. And these people are also wrestling with despair like you have no idea, because they long for a relationship with Christ, but do not understand how to find that relationship. It's the Beatitudes. This is it. It's the Beatitudes. This is where you find that relationship. This is where you grow to understand. And Dave, we talked a lot about this over the last few weeks. We talked a lot about this.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if we're going to be merciful, so here's what I'm going to ask of our audience. If you're going to live these Beatitudes, and I hope you do, I really hope you do, I'm going to ask you to take a piece of paper out and write down the Beatitudes, and under each one of the Beatitudes, I want you to try to identify what parts of your life is this lacking. But for this one, in particular, for this one, I would ask you to start off with yourself. Forgive yourself. Identify within yourself where the pain is, where the struggle is, where the thoughts of hopelessness reside. And begin by forgiving yourself. Be merciful to yourself. And I'm not saying that, if you have a gambling problem, forgive yourself and then go bet the ponies again. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is let the past be the past and look to the future with hope and with determination for health of body, mind, and spirit, especially spirit. Because each one of us are called to not only show mercy to others, but also to show mercy to ourselves. So here's another thing that I'd like to talk about in regards to all of this. Again, there's no way that we can buy our way into heaven. I don't care how many good deeds you do. I don't care how much money you donate. Certainly what you do expresses where your heart is. I mean, if you want to, get involved in this life, if you truly want to get involved with this life, then this is a life of service to others. This is a life of supporting with your time, treasure, and talent in whatever capacity you can. If you want to support what we're doing here at Through the Fire, if you want to come to our website and check that out, castingthe.net, and you'll see more content. Dave's got a bunch of other shows that are up on that website. If you want to support and be part of the community, fantastic. Come to castingthe.net and support us there. If you want to support what we're doing and what we're trying to expand and grow in local radio, and we were mentioning our friends over in divinemercyradio.com, go over there and support over there. There's lots of ways that you can get involved, but just don't let it be This is not a punch list where, well, I donated X amount of dollars, so I'm good. Because you can't, it's a matter of this has to be your life. You need to make a decision as to what's important. I've heard a homily that was given a long time ago, a homily that was given by Father Larry Richards up in Pennsylvania. And he gives this homily on Christ the King Sunday. And he talks about how, if Jesus is going to be truly the king, let's go back to the medieval time of King Arthur and the knights and all this, right? All that fun stuff. If you're going to serve the king, you serve the king entirely. And so if Jesus is truly going to be your king, he needs to be king over your time. He needs to be king over your money. And he needs to be king over your body. So over your time, you have to ask yourself, what do I do? How do I spend my time? What am I listening to? What radio programs, what podcasts am I listening to? Or am I watching some nonsense on TV? Or am I listening to some nonsense on the radio? How am I spending my time? Am I reading books that are going to draw me closer to Christ? Or am I reading some kind of stupid, trashy novel? So Jesus has to be he has to be Lord and King over your time. Am I giving him my time properly? Am I going to Mass? Am I participating in holy days of obligation? Am I doing my best to have some kind of regular routine of a holy hour? So he has to be Lord and King over your time. The next, he has to be Lord and King over your money. Everybody has, I don't care what you say, everybody has some measure of discretionary money. Everybody has, maybe it's 50 cents, I don't know, but everybody has some measure of discretionary money. What are you doing with that discretionary money? How are you spending it? What is it going towards? Is it going towards building up the kingdom? Or is it going towards purchasing something that you honestly don't need? Having Amazon visit your house again, dropping off a package that you don't need. So he has to be Lord and King over your money. Now, I'm not trying to say that you can't have some sort of entertainment factor in your life. Of course you can, and you should be able to have some enjoyable entertainment. But all of this is related to building up the kingdom. You want to change society, the shape and structure of society. Don't have these ridiculous concepts of, I'm going to propose something that will change the world. Meanwhile, you are doing nothing to change yourself. It should be the other way. Work on changing yourself, become transformed, transform the person in the mirror, and if enough of us do that, the world is going to follow. And then lastly is he has to be Lord and King over your body. Oh, but nobody goes into my bedroom. I can do all the freaky stuff I want in the bedroom. No, you can't. You can't. You're not alone in that bedroom. He's there. So we have to understand, what is the whole purpose of relationships? What's the purpose of marriage? What's the purpose of a sexual relationship with somebody? Believe it or not, sexual relationships are not supposed to be yet another form of entertainment. Sorry, that's not their purpose. Now, is there wonderful euphoric experiences? Yeah. And thank goodness for that. But those euphoric experiences are not supposed to be then put on video and sent across the internet. They are meant to draw the husband and wife closer and tighter into that one flesh union, sacramentally married, divine encounter, to bring forth life as a result. Now, I'm not so naive as to think, oh, well, everybody is already doing this. No, I know a lot of people are not doing any of this. Now we come back to blessed are the merciful. So if you're a parent and you have adult children who are not living the life that they should be living, love them. Love them. I'm not saying you should excuse. I'm not saying you should ignore. What I am saying is yelling and screaming at them is not an expression of love. Love them. And if you're divorced and remarried and you have problems with the church because you can't receive communion, work on getting an annulment. Do it the right way. Is it arduous? Yeah, but it's supposed to be arduous because the sacrament of matrimony is a big deal. Lastly, I want to read this. This comes out of Matthew's Gospel. Matthew's Gospel, chapter 9, verse 10 through 13. And it says, while he was at table in his house, many tax collectors and sinners came and sat with Jesus and his disciples. The Pharisees saw this and said to his disciples, why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners? He heard this and said, those who are well do not need a physician, but the sick do. Go and learn the meaning of the words, I desire mercy, not sacrifice. I did not come to call the righteous, but sinners. If we understand that, then we understand the beatitude, blessed are the merciful. If everybody in the world was already righteous, if everybody in the world was already a saint, what's the purpose of Jesus's ministry? What's the purpose of the church? As Pope Francis had said, the church is a field hospital for broken souls. Every one of us who claim to be a devout Catholic, we should be corpsmen in that hospital, in that field hospital. We are corpsmen. We go out into the field, we rescue the bodies that are dying in the ditch, and we bring them back. And how do we do that? Love and mercy. Love and mercy. That's how we do it.
Mercy.
Yeah. And so we are called to love one another, not the way the world loves, but we are called to love one another as Jesus has loved us.
Deacon, we got to pretty much leave it there. But hey, before we go, I want to say if anybody has a show idea that they'd like us to talk about, just send me an email at dave@castingthe.net. Really love to hear from you. Let me know where you're listening from. Tell us a little bit about yourself. And if you have any questions that you want, please, Deacon and I would love to
absolutely
give you a shout out. So please, it's dave@castingthe.net. Hey, and friends, don't forget to check us out at www.castingthe.net, where you can find all our shows from the past and some stuff about us going forward in the future. For Deacon Don Prendergast, I'm David Fortin. We'll see you next week.
The preceding program was a Spirit of Truth Radio Arts original program for CastingThe.net.